brand new clip from Kamala's first solo sit-down interview. She's attacking Trump on tariffs. Let's watch.
You don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity.
Jesse Waters delivers a mock news report that blends political satire with humor, focusing on Donald Trump's rallies, Kamala Harris, and the 2024 U.S. elections. He starts by talking about Trump's rally in Pennsylvania and makes a dramatic remark that Trump almost got killed in Butler, injecting humor into the situation.
And from one soft interview to another, Joe Biden giving the ladies of The View one last good hair sniff. The leader of the free world making a special stop to the all-girl gabfest. The hosts were giddy beyond belief and putting North Korea to shame with how much praise they heaped on the big guy.
Vice.
You were my ride or die.
You've been the best.
He just wouldn't go. He was like a bug.
Waters continues by highlighting the excitement surrounding early voting, particularly in Virginia, and comments on the surprising Republican turnout, which he contrasts with the party's usual stance on early voting. The report then shifts to Trump's playful moments at his rallies, where he tries to get his grandson to say MAGA, but the child says, "Vote for Grandpa instead."
The ladies asking Joe about his replacement, forcing Biden to swallow his pride and act like everything's cool with Kamala.
What advice have you given the vice president about how to win?
Be herself. Look, she is smart as hell. As vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility. She has the energy, she has the intelligence, she has the grit, she has the stamina, and she has the guts to do the right thing.
All right, you can either take Stephanie Rule's interview or the ladies of The View, Dana.
I'm just going to take this one real quick because I never thought that Joe Biden would make a political contribution to the Trump campaign, but he did so today. Because I don't think there's any way the Harris people thought that this was going to be a good idea. He says, as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do, and I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
Everything.
Why wouldn't you just cut that soundbite and run it in all the battleground states and, you know?
Waters uses this as an example of Trump's relatable personality. Waters criticizes the Biden-Harris administration, focusing on job outsourcing and American companies like John Deere moving operations to Mexico. Trump's response is satirized, with Waters humorously noting that Trump would impose a 200% tariff to prevent outsourcing. This reflects Trump's economic policies of keeping jobs in America.
In the commercial break, that she kept all of his tariffs and then even raised them.
But I think some of them they did. The question is, a lot of them they did. And that was, we talked about a lot of things in the break. A couple things. If I wasn't surprised that the View praised him on his wedding. If we brought President Trump here in his farewell, I'd be nice to him as well and would salute him too. So I think it's fine. I do think that Vice President Harris talking about the seriousness of the tariffs. I wish she would also add to that some of the very CEOs in the country who come on our business network here and say critical things about her plan. One should ask them, what do you think about tariffs?
Donald Trump holding a big rally in the swing state of Pennsylvania tonight, and he's just announced that in 2 weeks he'll be going back to Butler, where he was almost killed. Voters across the country have just started casting their ballots. Early voting officially kicked off Friday in some states, and the lines were crazy. In Virginia, not a swing state.
Energy policy is another key point. Waters mocks Kamala Harris's stance on fracking, sarcastically saying, Kamala just doesn't give a frack, and uses it to portray her as unconcerned about energy jobs and working-class Americans. Waters also contrasts endorsements for Trump, like those from the police and Teamsters, with fictional endorsements for Harris from the drug cartels and foreign adversaries like Putin and China.
The Republican Party, not known for early voting, can't wait to get to the polls. As we head into the final stretch, the former president's in a good mood. Over the weekend, Trump held a rally in North Carolina and brought his secret weapons.
Make American great again. Vote for Grandpa.
Oh, he doesn't want to get off the stage. Oh, wow. Look at that. He's got the gene.
Working class jobs are being gutted because politicians like Biden and Harris let our manufacturing base leave the country for cheap labor in exchange for political donations. The agricultural machine conglomerate, John Deere, an iconic American brand, has laid off hundreds of workers in the Midwest and are moving their factories to Mexico. And Biden and Harris never even tried to convince them to stay.
As Waters continues, he criticizes Harris for avoiding the public and skipping the Al Smith dinner, a charitable event that involves roasting other candidates. He makes the point that Harris wants voters to know her, but won't engage in public events, implying she's hiding from tough questions about her policies.
This is vintage Trump. Cajole American companies with the threat of tariffs to remain in America, hire American, and make sure their products are made in the USA. This is why he won in 2016, and if this continues, why he win again. Putting the American people first. And American-made machines need to be run with American-made energy. Kamala Harris has always been against American energy. Kamala doesn't give a frack about you. She's lying about her record because she wants to be president. For her, this election isn't about you at all. It's about her. Members of the Teamsters, the police, and the Border Patrol are endorsing Donald Trump. Kamala's got the endorsement of the IRS union. And today, the spooks who signed the Hunter Biden laptop letter endorsed her. Oh, and the teachers union who abandoned our children during COVID, they're backing Harris. Also, the drug cartels have gotten behind Kamala Harris big time. Putin endorsed Kamala, the Chinese love her, and the Iranians hacked the Trump campaign and gave their emails to the Harris campaign. Remember the quote, "Tell me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are." If you were watching football on Sunday, you saw a Trump ad telling you exactly who Kamala Harris is, in her own words.
The report becomes more absurd, with claims that Harris supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and wants to provide free breast implants for migrants. These extreme claims parody common criticisms of Democratic policies, blowing them out of proportion for comedic effect.
Trump's making his campaign about you, while Kamala's been hiding from you. After inheriting her old man's money and stealing his delegates, she hasn't done a single real interview because the people who control her won't let her. If she wanted to show America she has what it takes, she could hold a press conference tonight and say, "Hey, ask me whatever you want. I'll be here until the sun comes up. What do you got?" Kamala's handlers just announced she's skipping the Al Smith dinner, a tradition that goes back 40 years, where presidential candidates take turns roasting each other and just to raise funds for Catholic charities. Hillary never chickened out.
Jesse Waters brings his signature style to the forefront, dissecting the latest developments with biting humor and unapologetic commentary. His ability to blend satire with current events keeps viewers engaged.
She's always rambling on about growing up middle class. The campaign says they want Americans to get to know her. She says she wants to unite the country, but she won't show up and have a little laugh. She loves to laugh. She doesn't want to make fun of Trump. It's all she's good at. She doesn't want to have a glass of wine and raise money for charity. It's not like anyone's going to ask her questions like, "Why'd everything get so expensive when you and Joe came into power?" Or "Why'd you let 20 million migrants into the country?" There were no wars under Trump, and now there's one in Europe and the Mideast. How'd that happen? Nobody at the Al Smith dinner is going to ask her why she said she wanted to legalize prostitution and decriminalize crack. It's not like I'm going to send Johnny to the Al Smith dinner to ask Kamala Harris why she fell for the Jussie Smollett hoax, when everybody with common sense knew it was a setup.
Waters' take on political dynamics offers a reflection on the shifting landscape, reminding the audience that the road to the election is filled with unexpected twists and turns.
Kamala's flying migrants into the country. She doesn't want to deport any of them. She just wants to give him free sex changes. Now, if I was interviewing Kamala Harris, I'd ask her, don't you think free breast implants for migrants is going to make inflation a lot worse?
Today, Jesse Watters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany made a groundbreaking announcement on the Faulkner Focus, catching everyone off guard. The dynamic trio, known for their strong opinions and sharp analysis, revealed something that could shake up the political and media landscape. Harris-Faulkner, always at the center of impactful discussions, facilitated the conversation with her trademark poise. As the news broke, the studio buzzed with excitement and anticipation, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. What could this major announcement mean for the future of conservative commentary? Let's dive into the details of this unexpected revelation.
Questions. It's highly dangerous for Peter Doocy to ask questions.
Wow.
Putting aside the ethics here, it's fine if she wants to engage in political rhetoric. Just go do it at the campaign and don't use your White House title and don't stand behind that White House podium. This is 48 hours after the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And all of a sudden the rules go out the window. You're going to double down on this rhetoric? 48 hours.
Well, it's really, really, really unfortunate that she could not see that question coming. I mean, a child could have told you that after a former president was nearly killed a second time, you might want to be ready for the question of how many times does it take before you make sure that you've got the protection around him per the White House that looks like a president currently, because that's what it's going to take. You'd think she'd be ready for that. I immediately got on X and said, there's never a hatchack around when you need.
Jesse Watters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany each play distinct roles in shaping political discussions on Fox News, reflecting their unique personalities and viewpoints.
Now, despite the second attempt on Trump's life, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre doubled down on referring to Trump as a threat.
Jesse Watters, known for his sharp wit and straightforward delivery, often focuses on critiquing mainstream media narratives and highlighting issues he believes are being ignored or misrepresented. He plays the role of the provocateur, challenging the status quo and offering a voice to conservative frustrations with the current political climate.
How are we supposed to trust the Secret Service to investigate themselves if they won't even tell us who they're investigating? Thankfully, whistleblowers are leaking. The New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank.
Here's a tip, lady. Never interview a guy with a beer in one hand and a Solo cup in the other.
The lane she was dangerously weaving and bobbing and going into, and that's where she didn't want to go, but she couldn't help herself because the answer to the question was she doesn't want to stop saying he's not a threat.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to stop saying he's a threat, rather. Because that's how Democrats see it, a threat to democracy. It's their talking point. And they haven't thought it through. Well, could that be part of the problem of why he's in danger? If they have thought it through, then they're complicit. And if they haven't, they're really naive. So Peter calls her out on it. She's upset, calls him dangerous for the question. I call her dangerous for the answer. Stop calling Donald Trump a threat. I mean, people have tried to kill him more than once now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's dangerous for Peter to ask a question of the federal government. You can't do that. It's also dangerous for J.D. Vance to question the media.
Whether he's talking about economic policies, immigration, or cultural issues, Watters frames his arguments around what he sees as the disconnect between the political elite and ordinary Americans. He frequently emphasizes accountability and transparency in government, pushing back against what he perceives as hypocrisy and corruption within political circles.
Primetime looked all over the internet. New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank. Primetime looked all over the internet for information about Meredith Bank. No photos, no bio, it's all gone. Now, we don't know how qualified Agent Bank is. Was she one of the female agents that former director Kimberly Cheadle was promoting with her DEI agenda? We don't know. Was she one of the female agents that was promoted even after failing tests? We don't know. But Butler was a test, and she failed it.
It never goes well. You know, this guy served his country and worked hard all his life. No wonder CNN sees him as the problem.
You know, for those who didn't see, Carly, J.D. Vance brought constituent complaints to his interview. She can fact check them, fine. That's what the media can do. But then he questioned Dana Bash, giving multiple choice questions to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, contrasting it with his interview where he was constantly interrupted. And it's not dangerous for him to question the media.
Greg Gutfeld brings a more satirical and irreverent tone to political commentary. As a co-host on The Five and host of his own late-night show, he blends humor with critique, often mocking both political figures and the media. Gutfeld's role is to provide a comedic yet insightful perspective, using humor to disarm and engage his audience. He often tackles the absurdities of political discourse, pointing out contradictions and the often performative nature of modern politics.
But the ignorant left always forgets that there's a long time between the economy starting to suck and everyone being poor. And the CNN bosses will surely fire that reporter long before they have to sell their own boats. Now, the reporter should have said, you know what, sir, I'm out of my depth here. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go home. Instead, she persisted.
A local SWAT team commander says there was really no direction for Miss Meredith Bank. Secret Service asked for 2 snipers, but never told Butler officials where they wanted them posted. So when locals said, hey, Agent Bank, there's a roof with a direct line of sight to the stage, should someone cover that? Bank passed the buck, said some other unit probably has it covered. This jives with what whistleblowers told Senator Hawley.
Which she doesn't understand. So let's review. According to this genius from CNN, as long as you have money, you shouldn't worry about people who don't. Got it? In other words, he's capable of thinking about somebody else besides himself, unlike that reporter.
His commentary tends to focus on freedom of speech, cancel culture, and what he sees as the encroachment of political correctness on personal liberties. Gutfeld's style is more relaxed and conversational, aiming to make serious topics more accessible and entertaining without losing the substance of his arguments. Kayleigh McEnany, on the other hand, brings a more structured and formal approach to her political analysis.
A major blow for the Harris campaign today after the Manhattan judge in Trump's hush money case delayed sentencing until after the election.
Liberal media pundits quickly claimed that Vice President Kamala Harris won Tuesday's debate. But it seemed undecided voters are not so sure. The New York Times reporting this. Voters said the vice president talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's most stubborn problems, but they wanted the fine print.
Harris was hoping for Trump to hit that legal pothole in October, and now legally Trump has a clear road ahead. Reality is setting in, and Obama world is telling Democrats not to get your hopes up. They say it's very possible that if the election were held today, Trump would win. That's what we've been telling you. Democrat numbers guru Nate Silver says stop ignoring the elephant in the room. Quote, the Electoral College is starting to look like a challenge for Kamala. After a slew of what Silver calls mediocre polls for Harris, he's forecasting Trump winning every single battleground by 1 to 4 points. Silver gives Trump a 62% chance of winning. And the Clintons are sharpening their knives.
As a former White House press secretary under the Trump administration, she draws on her experience to provide insider perspectives on political strategy and media relations. McEnany often defends conservative policies and leaders, particularly those of Donald Trump, while also critiquing what she sees as unfair media bias and misinformation.
That felt really good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So in Monday's TV address, President Biden appeared to have a spray tan. Aides say he tried using a tanning bed, but when they closed the lid, Dr. Jill kept throwing dirt and flowers on top.
And it was not just the New York Times that found that the debate was not a slam dunk for Harris. Reuters interviewed 10 people who were still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5th election before they watched the debate. 6, that's about 60%, said afterwards that they would now neither vote for Trump or they were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would now back Harris, and 1 was still unsure how he would vote.
Even Biden's going to watch Tuesday's debate with low expectations. His team thinks Kamala's public performances are uneven and often not reassuring. They worry she struggles under the glare of national pressure. They find her risk-averse to the point of paralysis.
When media brought up Biden's freshly darkened complexion, Democrat leaders replied that it's all part of their plan to gradually replace him with a person of color.
Her role is that of the defender and strategist, using her knowledge of political communication to articulate and advocate for conservative viewpoints. She often highlights what she believes to be the successes of the Trump administration and contrasts them with current policies, aiming to demonstrate the effectiveness of conservative governance. Together, these three personalities create a dynamic and multifaceted commentary on Fox News. Jeremy Clarkson took on Keir Starmer in a debate that pushed the boundaries of political discourse. With his signature wit and sharp commentary, Clarkson didn't hold back, delivering a series of pointed critiques that left Starmer momentarily at a loss for words. As tensions rose, it became clear that this wasn't just another political exchange. It was a clash of personalities that captivated audiences everywhere. What unfolded next was nothing short of a spectacle, as Clarkson's bravado challenged Starmer's composure in ways few expected.
In a savage way. He actually hit me so pathetically weakly that he gouged my temple. I have a scar here when I get a tan, and it's from his signet ring I think he had on, which gouged me here. But the good news was that in hitting my head, he broke his little finger and disfigured it so badly, it's never fully recovered. So we kind of both have our little war wounds. Look, Jeremy Clarkson and I had 10 years of war, and it was particularly annoying that my kids all loved Top Gear. And then eventually he texted me about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe later, it was last summer actually, and it was brilliantly British. It was like at 1 a.m, Morgan, Clarkson here, we should end this. Drink? And then I found out that we shared the same pub without realising it. I said, Scarsdale, 7 p.m, Monday. And he arrived on a push bike looking like he was about to die. And I arrived on foot, and I could see the locals going, holy fuck.
In a recent televised exchange, Jeremy Clarkson, known for his provocative style, engaged Keir Starmer in a heated discussion that quickly escalated. Clarkson's sharp wit and biting humour caught Starmer off guard, leading to moments of awkward silence as the Labour leader struggled to respond. The confrontation showcased Clarkson's knack for turning serious debates into theatrical spectacles, leaving audiences both amused and astonished by the way he managed to humiliate Starmer with just a few well-timed remarks. Social media exploded with reactions, highlighting how Clarkson's charismatic presence dominated the conversation, leaving Starmer reeling. As the exchange unfolded, Clarkson wasted no time launching into pointed critiques of Starmer's policies and leadership style.
Fascinating, isn't it, Bev? This array of front pages across the media, all aligned from left to right. The Guardian, the Daily Mail, even towing the line. Interesting. The Sun front page, actually, if we can get it up, nailed and jailed. Naming and shaming some of the thugs who were involved in rioting this week. One got a 3-year jail term for punching a cop during violence in Southport. Excellent, swift justice within a day or two, banged up. The question begs then, why are those people caught on CCTV at Manchester Airport some weeks ago? Do you remember that incident? Smashing police officers in the face, breaking a young officer's nose into pieces. Why are they still on bail, doing press conferences, playing the victim, saying that they're going to sue the hell out of Greater Manchester Police? If we can deal with people this quickly, white, working class, far-right thugs in jail for 3 years within days, why can't that be sorted out?
With his trademark bravado, he questioned Starmer's ability to connect with the public using clever anecdotes that painted the Labour leader as out of touch. The studio audience reacted with laughter and gasps, amplifying the awkwardness for Starmer, who attempted to regain his footing. Starmer, visibly taken aback, struggled to counter Clarkson's barbs, leading to a series of stumbles in his responses. Each time he tried to pivot the conversation back to policy, Clarkson deftly redirected it, making it clear that he was more interested in theatrics than serious debate. Viewers were captivated as Clarkson's relentless humor transformed the political discourse into a lively, albeit uncomfortable, spectacle. Social media was abuzz with clips of the exchange, with many praising Clarkson for his boldness, while others criticized him for overshadowing substantive political discussion. Ultimately, the encounter served as a stark reminder of how charisma and performance can dominate the political arena.
Being reported that you're looking at tighter restrictions on smoking outdoors, pub gardens, outdoor restaurants, outside hospitals and so on. Is that something that you are considering?
My starting point on this is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives every year because of smoking. That's a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS, and of course it's a burden on the taxpayer. So yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, but this is a preventable series of deaths, and we've got to take the action to reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted politics to tread more lightly on people's lives. This is the opposite, isn't it?
Look, I think it's important to get the balance right. But everybody watching this who uses the NHS will know that it's on its knees. We have to relieve the burden, and that's why I spoke before the election about moving to a preventative model when it comes to health. I want the NHS back on its feet, but I also want it fit for the next, 75 years, just as we've had a brilliant 75 years already. And that means taking action in relation to preventable deaths, and these are 80,000 a year preventable deaths.
Leaving Starmer with a lot to think about in the wake of Clarkson's unforgettable verbal assault. As the tension mounted, Clarkson seized every opportunity to push Starmer further into a corner. He delivered punchlines that not only drew laughter from the audience, but also underscored his criticisms, often referencing Starmer's previous missteps and party challenges. With each quip, the Labour leader's composure wavered, illustrating the stark difference between Clarkson's fearless persona and Starmer's more measured approach. Despite attempts to refocus the conversation on key issues like the economy and public services, Clarkson continually brought it back to personal jibes, calling into question Starmer's leadership skills with anecdotes that resonated with viewers. "How do you expect to lead the country when you can't even defend your own position?" Clarkson quipped, prompting audible reactions from the crowd. The aftermath of the encounter sparked debates across social media and news outlets, with pundits analysing the implications for Starmer's leadership and the Labour Party's strategy moving forward. Many speculated on whether this public humiliation would affect Starmer's standing among supporters, or if he could rebound from the experience with renewed vigour.
But it's a legal decision, not a policy decision. And the Prime Minister knows the framework, and they shout, they issued the guidance, they know what the test is, that test has been assessed, we've come to a conclusion, and we've put that before the House to consider.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Prime Minister's answer, but he'll know that decisions like this also have important and broader geopolitical implications.
I made it very clear on a number of occasions that those involved will feel the full force of the law. So we coordinated, we went through some of the numbers. Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message.
In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
So the Prime Minister tonight reacting to what has happened over the course of the last 48 hours. His conclusion, very simple, it's all the far right, as if they're causing all of the problems. No, the far right are a reaction to fear, to discomfort, to unease that is out there shared by tens of millions of people. Let me be clear. I don't support street violence. I don't support thuggery in any way at all. But I'm worried, not just about the events in South.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
Folks, just think about it. Are you proud of what your forebears did? And yes, I know the Second World War generation are dying out, so I understand why there might be slightly less pride in our immediate past. You know, if your father or your mother was involved in the war, if your family lost people in either one of the wars, I do understand for a younger generation that is further.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action.
Starmer, greatest threat, this is the Telegraph, greatest threat to free speech in British history. And you have to believe that he is, because he's saying he's got a whole crew of people looking at Twitter. He's got a whole crew of people looking at the media and all the different things and making sure we say the right things, that we don't incite violence. I mean, the guy is he's bad. He's an absolutely bad.
How's he? What are some of the ways he's going to restrict free speech?
He's going to say you can't say anything.
He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall, especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front.
Is speaking to the fact that there was an information vacuum in the wake of the killings of those girls, absolutely horrific killings. That obviously, you know, across the nation, everybody was furious. Everybody wanted answers. We still don't know what the motive was. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to come out during the trial process at some point. And we know for a fact that if it had been a white guy had stabbed, gone into a mosque or something like that, then immediately.
He criticized Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness.
About the person that's been arrested, there's a legal process, legal precedent set about not wishing to ruin the trial. That's why the information doesn't come out. And especially when the police would have known that the person they got was 17, you don't give information about the person if they're underage. Now, it turns out it was like 3 days underage by the time you got to see a judge, which makes sense actually naming him. But, I mean, none of that. You can have the debate about how our system works, but at the moment, our system works to preserve information to get a good conviction in trial.
Dominating national conversations. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action. He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall.
Labor from the top down over the recent years have embraced just about every neo-Marxist folly, from taking a knee for BLM, remember that, to pushing the most extremes of trans activism. But Keir Starmer has suddenly discovered the startling news that men have a penis and women have a vagina. It is a departure from what he has said in the recent past. Indeed, he is performing quite a few backflips in this area. Let's have a look.
Especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front. He criticized Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness dominating national conversations.
It's also quite alarming just for any man to get into his 60s and discover that men have penises and women don't. It makes you wonder what he's done with his life. But no, of course, this is all just this. I mean, it's so pathetic watching him wriggle like that. He failed to stand up for his very brave female MP, Rosie Duffield, when she simply stated biological fact. He spent a long time doing exactly what we saw him do in one of those interviews, which is...
As Farage and Murray's criticisms reverberate across the political spectrum, the spotlight is now on Keir Starmer to respond. With increasing pressure from both the right and within his own party, his leadership faces a critical test in the months ahead. Whether he can redefine his strategy and present himself as a decisive and effective leader may determine not only his political future, but the future of the Labour Party itself.
And there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Mahdi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages.
As the political landscape grows more divided, the criticisms from Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray add to the mounting pressure on Keir Starmer. With the next election looming, Starmer faces an uphill battle to prove himself as a leader capable of uniting both his party and the country. Whether he can withstand these attacks and deliver a clear, compelling vision for the future remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the stakes have never been higher for the Labour leader. In breaking news, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have just made a major announcement that's turning heads across the political landscape. Known for their outspoken views and strong stances on national and international issues, the duo's latest statement is poised to have significant implications. As speculation grows, everyone's eager to find out what this could mean for the future of British and global politics. Stay tuned as we dive into the details of their bold new move.
Who is leader of the House, has set up a new committee, a new modernisation committee. When you hear that word, you should always have a slight shiver down the spine. And she herself, unusually, is going to chair this committee. It has 14 members, 9 of them are Labour. And I'll tell you what they're really going for. They're talking about second jobs, but in particular, what they're talking about is broadcasting. And it says the committee will consider.
Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray are two prominent figures known for their outspoken views on national identity, immigration, and political correctness. While they come from different backgrounds, Farage as a politician and Murray as an author and commentator, their views often intersect, particularly on issues related to Western values and societal changes in the UK and beyond. We'll explore their key moments, statements, and the impact they've had on public discourse. Nigel Farage first rose to prominence as the leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, where he championed the cause of Brexit.
Now, we don't on this programme, we don't on this channel blow our own trumpet or boast. No, 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 you can go to a very loudmouth presenter on another news channel to get that sort of thing. But yesterday was the first day since GB News was launched that we did across the day.
Farage's relentless campaigning was instrumental in pushing the UK towards the historic 2016 referendum. His message was clear. The UK needed to regain control of its borders and laws, and only by leaving the European Union could it truly be sovereign.
What advantages, if any, outside paid engagements such as media appearances, journalism and speeches furnished to the public versus potential conflicts of interest? Well, folks, I want to tell you this. I don't see any conflict of interest between being an MP and coming here 3 evenings a week for an hour. And by the way, if there are crucial votes, I just won't be here. I don't see any conflicts of interest whatsoever. In fact, I might make an argument that's slightly different.